My name is Sam Dorson. I'm one of the two co-founders at ReflexAI, and I've spent over a decade in crisis services and crisis work more broadly. Over that time, it's included two and now about to be three presidential elections. And one of the things that stood out for me as a frontline responder and then as a leader in a crisis services center was how many calls we were getting in the lead up to the election and after the election related to election stress. Folks having difficulty coping, struggling with their resilience, or having really, really specific challenges in their daily life, whether personal or professional, that was connected to the election. At ReflexAI, our goal is to support crisis line partners across the country in their training in quality assurance. So over the last few months, we've developed a training specifically on election stress. I'd love to show you ReflexAI's election stress training, which has two core components to it. The first one is an extensive tactical guide for crisis counselors on how they can use the skills they've already developed in so many other situations and apply them in particular to a crisis call related to election stress. This includes components like identifying when someone's calling about election stress, how you can build trust with them and build that deep connection with someone experiencing election stress, some of the best practice principles on risk assessment in these situations, and then also safety planning and planning for next steps. One of the things that stood out as we were doing a significant amount of clinical research and interviews with crisis centers as we developed this training was the ways in which the core crisis counselor skills can be used really effectively when talking about election stress with a caller, but also some of the times where these skills can lead you astray. To give one example, as we think about validation and empathy, really important skills in crisis line training and crisis line operations. But it's really important on a call about the election to be validating someone's emotions, right? That they're feeling scared, that they're feeling frustrated, that they're feeling helpless, but not so much focus on the underlying politics and whether or not you as the call taker agree or disagree. So all of these different components are woven into the core content that are designed really, really tactically for crisis responders. The second part of the training is actually applying those skills. So there are two simulations that come with the training, Seth and Trisha, where every participant will interact with both of these fictional personas and practice the skills that they've just reviewed and developed as part of the training. For Seth lives in Arizona, very close to the border, and recently started a job as a paralegal at a law firm in the city. One of the things he's struggling with is that the conservative political views of folks at his office are very different from his personal views. But even more deeply than that for Seth, this is his dream job in so many ways, and he wants to keep it, but he worries about sharing his political views at work, particularly because Seth's partner is an immigrant. So what I'm going to show you now is the Trisha simulation. This is a text-based simulation, and you'll see pretty quickly how these skills have to come into use when you're interacting with Trisha. Trisha is a stay-at-home mom in Colorado with 3 teenagers. And the thing that's been really challenging for her is the last 4 years have been really difficult for her family. Inflation has been a real challenge, and she hasn't been able to save as much money for her kids' college education as she would have hoped. As she talks to others in her life about how this makes her feel, what she's hearing from them, and her friends are more liberal than she is why would we ever go back to the prior president and how things were then? And for Trisha, her life was better then, day to day and with her family. And so she's really struggling with the lack of personal connections in her life because the folks that she's turned to most regularly and leaned on over the years really disagree with her about the election, about politics. And that's what's causing her to feel isolated. As the crisis counselor is talking to Trisha, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing with her politics, but it's about really understanding and empathizing with the fact that how she's feeling and her beliefs are leading to her feeling isolated from her friends. And that can be really challenging and really draining day over day. Now let's interact directly with the Trisha simulation. I'll hit start simulation and I'll navigate down and start with a standard opening message in the crisis world. Hi, welcome to Helpline. My name is Sam. What's going on? and we're going to hear back from Trisha. Everything's a mess. Money problems, the election coming up, and fighting with my family. It's too much. So we're getting a lot from Trisha right off the bat, really high intensity, really high emotions. Yeah. So something like, I'm really glad you reached out. Can you tell me a bit more about what's going on, about what you're dealing with? And a bit of a delay because Trisha had a lot to say. Well, with the election coming up, I've been really vocal about my political views, and it's causing problems. I had a huge fight with my sister during the holidays, and now we're not talking at all. On top of that, money's been tight lately, and I'm worried about our finances. It's all a lot to handle. So that does sound like you have a lot on your shoulders. Let's just empathize. Let's not even ask another question, right? Let's just give Trisha that validation. Yeah, it's a lot, and I don't know what to do anymore. That makes total sense that you'd feel stuck. And here, one thing that we can do in a crisis conversation is find out about their support network. I'm wondering, have you been able to talk to other people about this? Sometimes I talk to my husband, Joe, about our financial worries. With my friends, I just avoid discussing politics to prevent conflicts. I feel like I can't talk to my sister. The situation has left me feeling isolated. This is the core of this scenario. And as you peel back the layers of the onion, as a crisis counselor and someone who's practicing with this scenario, you can see how it connects directly to the election and politics and requires you to use so many of the skills that you develop as a crisis counselor for a really wide range of calls. To just wrap up this short demo, I'm going to ask about suicide risk, which is a core part of these types of calls. I totally hear you, Trisha. How you're feeling and everything going on, thinking about killing yourself. No, I'm not. The Bible forbids it. I'm just here to talk about my issues with my family. In our guide on election stress, one of the things we talk a lot about is the importance of asking suicide risk assessment questions that are contextually grounded, non-judgmental, neutral, and clinically valid. On behalf of everyone in the Reflex community, thanks for the work that you do, and we hope this has been helpful. To hear more information or schedule a demo, you can reach us directly at connect@reflexai.com.